Okay. We are on Mishlei 11:11. Yod Aleph Yod Aleph. The Birkas Yesharim. Let me just make this here. The Birkas Yesharim Tarum Kares Uvefi Rashaim Tehares. If anyone would like to try to do an initial translation of that, then you can do that. The only word I think that people would not know is kares, which I put down here. Anyone want to take a stab? Okay, so then I'll translate it. Okay, so the Birkas Yesharim with the blessing of the upright, Tarum Kares, the town or city, let's just say city, will be raised up. Okay. I did see a thing. Oh, sorry. Two just nuances here. I don't know where Alator is getting this from because it only quotes one source. It quotes our pasuk. It says city as a corporate body of men. Okay, now I don't know what English word corresponds to that. I was thinking maybe like a community or a commune, like a group, an association maybe, but I don't know if that's going to matter. And then the other thing is I saw in Rashi, without going to Rashi's full pirush, he says Tarum Kares Tiskayim Tikras Habayis Begovha Milipol. The roof of the house will be established at a height so that it doesn't fall. So he seems to be learning kares as tikra, as roof. Okay, so raising the roof will be raised. Okay, I don't know, and no one else that I saw said that. Okay, but we'll just put that here. Rashi says the roof of the house will be raised and established. Okay, that's Rashi. The roof of the house. Okay, fine. Okay, then the second half is uvefi rashaim tehares, and with or through, and I guess this is also with or through the mouth of the wicked, it will be destroyed or ruined. Yeah. Okay, so we actually don't have a lot of other minimalist meforshim here. So let's really quickly go to those. Why am I not able to delete this? Oh, that's what happened to me last time also. Okay, so we have Sadigon. The only thing Sadigon does is he changes the word befi, is with the mouth. He changes it to with the words. Okay, so that's the only thing. And then the Targum, I couldn't even figure out if he's saying anything different. Targum says like this: "Bibirkasahon de tzadike tis romam medinta." So that is pretty much a straight translation. With the bracha of the tzadikim, the Medina, the country city, will be lifted up. Uvefumhum de rashi tis akar, and with the mouth of the Rashaim, it will be tis akar. Now I thought tis akar meant to be uprooted. Okay, and so I looked at the Targums for tehares elsewhere in Tanakh. Sometimes it uses this word, sometimes it doesn't. I don't think it really matters. Maybe it just means that like the city will be destroyed, like in terms of its very foundations. Not like the quality will go down.
Aaron?
Yeah. Oh, that's actually interesting. I wonder. I wonder. I don't know.
What's the question?
Like it would be a cool.
It's related to Baron, like Baren, like an akara.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm just because of the uncertainty, I'm gonna ignore the Targum there. Okay, fine. So, and you know what I'll do? I'm gonna move the Sadigon up to where Rashi is. Hang out under Rashi, so we can keep him there. Let's make Rashi a little bit smaller. Okay, and then we have our minimalist English translations. Our scroll says, "Through the blessing of the upright, a city is exalted, but through the mouth of the wicked it is torn down." Okay. Torn down actually I think is a more accurate translation. Will be torn down. Living Nach says, by the blessing of the upright a city rises. Okay, but by the mouth of the wicked is torn down. Alter says, through the upright's blessing a city soars. Okay, that's weird. Okay, I wouldn't have said soars. Okay, and by the mouth of the wicked it is raised. It also means like destroyed to the foundations.
Tarum is future tense, no? It's Lashon Hasa.
Yeah, right. Did he not say future tense? Oh, yeah, he says source. You're right.
No, the source sounds like a thing it's currently doing.
Right, that's true. Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'm actually, it is interesting. We encounter the tense question a lot in Tehillim, and in Mishlei, I feel like we don't usually. Oh, I guess in this issue we have asked a little bit about the tenses. I'm not sure whether the tenses matter, because like if it said it in present tense, you would also understand it to be a future tense thing. Like if this happens, then this will happen. Not sure. Okay, what are the questions?
Yeah, what does bracha mean?
Yes. Okay, so hold on here. What does bracha mean in this context?
What does it mean? What does it mean for the city to be raised up?
Yeah. What does it mean for the city to be raised up? Oh, I just want to say one thing for bracha, by the way, just because I feel like not enough people know this. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Literally, the word bracha means tosefes tov, which means increase of good. Okay, that's like what the root means.
Not as a fundamental question, but just a curiosity is there an implication as to the orders of the two half of the pasuk?
Okay, yeah. I want to say, it's funny. Does it usually start with a good and then go to the bad? So we have here okay, we have, well, bays, it's bad and good, but then all the ones with Yisharim, let's see, Yisharim and then Bogdim, so it's good, the bad. Tzidkas, Tamim, and Risha, good, bad.
Nine is bad and good.
Bad. What was that?
Nine is bad
yeah.
and good.
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. I haven't thought about that. Yeah. All right, it's a good general question. Yeah, your guess is as good as mine. This is the type of thing where I feel like I would feel more confident in, like, let's say someone posited an idea. So ordinarily my principle is, if you have like a minor stylistic question, then if you can come up with a good answer that contributes to the idea, great. Then if not, fine. This type of question, because it like really extends to all two-sided psukim, I feel like even if you had a good idea, then I wouldn't really be moved by it, because I would be skeptical. Like we would have to see like patterns, like not that there can't be a theory, but like I just similar question from before. I know earlier last year the question was raised about why many times the not in this pasuk, but why many times the tzaddik is in singular and the Russia is in plural, or like the Chacham is in singular and the Rishonim are in plural. So that's also a question where I would say, okay, that's just a stylistic thing. But then Rבינו Yona at one point had an idea about it. And I was like, okay, fine. So like there, that is a pattern I feel like I've seen before. This one, I just have no sense of like whether there even is a pattern. So it's a valid question. It's just like, I don't know what to do with it. Yeah, Michael?
Seconding all of your apprehension, I want to posit a random.
Okay, that's fine. Go ahead. Might as well get it out of the way.
I want to wager as like an idea. Maybe there's like a presumption that it's good, bad. I don't know, but I would also say maybe starting with the half that is more emotionally resonant, like that catches your attention. Like, so
Okay.
if the city being raised up, obviously we want our city to be fortified and strong. You start with that, and then you focus on the destruction, which is the other side of it.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good. I actually feel like, hold on. I want to, Isaiah, are you going to remember what you're going to say? Because
Yeah.
Okay. So I apologize to Isaiah. This is spoiling something for Tuesday night, or whoever else is coming to the Tuesday night here.
No.
Yeah. So, okay. Okay. This is a little bit far field, but it's been on my mind. So I feel like I have to share it. Okay. Sorry. If Shiur goes a little bit long today, then you could blame me. So we're doing in our Tuesday night and Thursday night Shiur, we're doing Ashrei. Okay. So the what do you call the Radak makes a shocking point, and we mentioned in Shiur last week on this in our Tehillim Shiur last week that this point would make the Malbim just like roll in his grave. Okay, so the Malbim's thing is every single word matters and every single nuance matters. So the Radak points out in Ashrei, in pasuk Vav, he says there are 10 terms here, okay, that are repeated. Gedula, Gvura, Maaseh, Hod, Kavod, Tov, Tzedakah, Malchus, Niflaos, Noraos, Vim Asar, and there are 10 because it's a known reason, which he says elsewhere means because 10 is like a perfect number, okay? And then he pulls a similar move in Tehillim 119, which is the longest parak in all of Tanakh, that it goes through a bunch of it uses a bunch of terms for mitzvos, like mitzvos, pikudim, chukim, etc. So here's the Radak's move that really upsets the Malbim. He says, "Einam davka kol echad b'makom hanizkar." Okay, he says each one is not specifically in its place. Ella kol echad inyano b'makom chavero gamkein. Each one can also be replaced with its fellow. Ella, okay, in other words, you could take any of those 10 terms in Ashrei and just swap them with each other. Okay, so for example, in the beginning of Ashrei, it says, "Armimcha Elokai Hamelach v'avarcha." Oh no, that's a bad example because it only uses one of the terms. Oh yeah, b'choyim avar. No. Okay, this is a better one. Dor ledor yeshabach ma'asecha ugvurusecha yagido. So he says, so the Malbim comes with a beautiful thing about like dor ledor yeshabach ma'asecha ugvurusecha yagido. So Malbim says that like what it means is that ma'asecha refers to the laws of nature. And in each and every generation, we understand more and more about science. And so we tell that to the next generation. And then that generation has a greater appreciation of Hashem. And he says, Yeshabach means it gets better. It says, Gvurusecha refers to miracles. And the miracles have to be passed down through Masorah. Okay, so beautiful thing. Radak says, you could just go like this. You could say, Dor ledor Yeshabach, Gvurusecha, Uma'asecha Yagido. Or you could say, Dor ledor Yeshabach, Tzidkasecha, Uma'asecha Yagido, whatever, So
he yucked his yum.
Say again?
He yucked his yum.
Yes, he yucks his yum. Yeah, exactly. So, and again, he does this in 119 also. So my Chavrusa and I were confronted with that, okay? And we were like, so does that mean it's totally arbitrary? Like, does that mean, like, is there no rhyme or reason? Did he all like David Melech just like pulled it out of the bag, Because that's a little disturbing. Like even if you said, let's say you were Don Lakaf Zuchus, which we are obviously because we think the Radak is a great Chacham, but like, let's say you wanted to say that the essential idea in pasuk Daled has nothing to do with Ma'asecha and Gvurusecha. Let's say the whole idea has to do with the Dor ledor and Yagidu. Okay, and like that's the main idea, because really that's how you're going to have to learn the psukim when you learn it according to the Radak, that the particular terms don't matter, right? It's just about like the verbs and the activities. Okay, so does that mean though that it was arbitrary? So we were like toying around with this idea, and then the answer we came to is that it's not that it's arbitrary, but that since Tehillim is Shira and Hallel and Tehillah, since it's song and praise and poetry, so then you could allocate those terms for aesthetic reasons, okay, for purely aesthetic poetic reasons. In other words, what the Radak is saying is in terms of the ideas, then it doesn't matter if you swap them, but certain ones might be better in terms of the way that it rolls off the tongue, the way that it parallels with other things in the parak, the way that, certain word associations, etc. And obviously we don't really, when I say we, I am not familiar with biblical poetry, so I can't like show examples of this, but categorically, like we definitely see that that's the case. Like in all of our English music, and I think in any language, when you do poetry, you'll sometimes like swap around a word and use a word that you wouldn't ordinarily use, not because it's the perfect word for the content, but because it fits into the poetry well. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because in Mishlei is not exactly poetry, although it is a shira, but it is proverbs, right? And proverbs are designed to be like idiomatic, right? That you're supposed to they're supposed to be on your tongue all the time, and you're supposed to say them. So along with Michael's theory that you might put the good person first because of emotional resonance, it might just be that like we want to advocate the whatever's going to pack the punch that's going to make you want to do this pasuk even more. So in cases where the main objective of the pasuk is to dissuade you from doing something disastrous, you might put the bad person first. And in areas where it's trying to like promote good activities, it might do the good person first. I honestly don't know. But I wanted to quote that thing to him just because to show that there might be non-conceptual or non-ideational considerations which warrant the structuring of the pasuk. Okay, so I know Isaiah had a comment first. Any comments on this thing that I just said? Yeah, Yosef?
I mean, surely on the basis of just it's more beautiful. Like, wouldn't you want to say that it's an idea before you say it's aesthetic?
Yes,
Like,
you definitely would.
Like,
I
if you're between the two answers, wouldn't you want to say like, oh, there was chachma behind this, rather than
100%.
oh, it's better emotionally, like just
That's why we were so taken aback by the Radak. And the thing is the only reason why we're continuing to do this in our Tehillim Shiur is because our goal, obviously our ultimate goal is to understand Tehillim, but when we learn one of the meforshim, our goal is to understand that mefarish. So if he's telling us, hey guys, in my commentary, I don't care if you swap the terms, so then we have to take him at his face value, even if we wouldn't be naturally inclined to interpret it that way. So I'm 100% on board with you there.
No, I'm just saying your own interpretation, right? Like,
yeah, my own
when you learn it
interpretation,
without- right.
definitely. Yeah. It's disturbing to see the Radak say that. Yeah, Zach.
So on the Redux perspective, I heard once said about like a very high level of cuisine that like when you have many multiple courses, like if you eat it in a specific order, each dish enhances the next one.
Interesting.
So I think like I heard it once described that there was like a course meal that you could eat in any order. And rather than that being like a less special meal, it was a more special meal because no matter which course you started with, it always ended up enhancing the meal, meaning
interesting.
No matter it was an even cooler meal because of that. So it's like the Redux point could be that like the ideas are all equal and that itself is a novel concept.
Yeah, right. That is an interesting idea. I mean, it's just, I'm only laughing.
Yums the yuck.
I'm only laughing because like when you're describing a meal, like how many courses could I have? Like 10, whatever, I'm thinking the fact that he says that in Tehillim, Kuf Yud Tes, which has 8 times 26 or times 25 or whatever, 20, whatever, like letters, like it'd be pretty amazing to make that, the way that you're describing the meal. For also just a side point, I'm only saying this because of Michael, who tried that and failed. When they did the first new season of Arrested Development, right? That was this trying thing where he says you could watch the episodes in any order, and it was a horrible thing. So I just wanted to like acknowledge that train wreck of a sequel. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So first questions on this last point before we go to Isaiah. Who has a question on this last point? Okay, so Isaiah, you're up next, and then we'll go. Joseph and I.
Yeah, so it might be a little early to ask this question.
Yeah.
But I noticed this one talks about cities. Is this pasuk related to the last pasuk?
Okay, very good. Right. So that's why I actually like preloaded the last pasuk here. So the previous pasuk says, Betuv tzadikim ta'alot kirya uva avod rishayim rina. That was the one we did last week. Okay. And many meforshim say that these two are related. Okay, so let's just ask that as an if question. Okay, so if this is related to the previous pasuk, what is the relationship? Okay, good question. Yeah. Okay, Yosef, you had a separate question, or yeah.
Simple questions. It's just I got confused which pasuk we're on.
Oh, sorry. I'm gonna make this one smaller just so you can see.
Yeah. Virkas Sharm term. Oh, right. What does it mean that the mouth of the Rishayim will bring it down? Like, what's the mouth of the Rishayim?
Yeah.
What is that?
Okay.
Like functionally, what is that?
Okay. Yeah. So let's see. What does mouth of the Rishayim refer to? And then practically speaking, how does the P Rishayim destroy, tear down the city? Yeah. In fact, we list. You know what? Let's do this because I found that there's this trend that we run out of room. So let's just ask, what does the mouth of Rishayim refer to? What does, in what sense is the city torn down? Is the city torn down? Okay, and then practically speaking, how does the P Rishayim tear down the city? Okay. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah,
Oh.
related to that question, in the first half of the pasuk, we said that the bracha of the yashar will get the city up, right?
Mhm.
I mean, raised up. However, shouldn't the opposite of that be like the klala? Meaning, so
Okay, that's a good question. Okay, that's a
meaning
good
what's
question
the
also.
difference?
Right.
I mean, if we're
So,
going to the premise that that they're opposites.
yeah. Okay, so could we actually list that as a larger question of what is the relationship between the two halves? Okay, if they're opposites, then isn't klala the opposite of bracha? And that's really the only thing that's not congruent in terms of the opposites, right? Because Russia and Tzaddik are Russia and Yashar we've seen as opposites, even though Tzaddik could also be an opposite. And then lifting the city seems to be good for the city, and tearing it down seems to be bad. Which I'm going to actually add this to Isaiah's question, which is both psukim talk about Rishayim, but what is the relationship between the statements about tzaddikim and yesharim, right? That that with the good of the tzaddikim, the city rejoices, which sounds like just like happiness, but then with the bracha of yesharim, the city is actually like lifted up. I mean, it sounds like the yesharim is going to have a greater effect on the city, unless you just want to say it's two parallel, unrelated effects.
The other question I had was, like, what would a city look like if a tzaddik was, through the blessing of the tzaddik?
Okay, that's also
what's the difference in the tzaddik and
that's a good question. Also, right? What happens if you swap the tzaddik and the Russia? Okay, meaning, for example, i.e., what
You mean the
effect-
tzaddik and the yashar?
Sorry, and the yashar. Yeah, sorry, and the yashar, i.e., what effect does the bracha of the tzaddik have? What effect does tuv yesharim have? Yeah.
Wait, also a question
yeah.
on Ariel's question.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if, because on our first question with what a bracha actually is in this context, could we say that by using the second half and saying that like it's the mouth of Rishayim that bring it down, could we take it as not like, oh, like the tzaddikim get bracha in terms of that, like more similar to the last pasuk, but more like literal, like, oh, like the literal brachas of the tzaddikim, because we obviously say brachas with our mouths.
Right. So that's elaborating on question one.
Like a mix of like Ariel's and one, because Ariel's was, why is it like not brachot and klolo?
Right.
I'm not really following your question, Rifki. What's your question?
I feel like
I guess it wasn't really a question. It was more of a like an observation on your question, which I guess is cheating a little bit.
Okay. All right. I'll just give you a hint that some of the meforshim do take. Okay. I also didn't fully understand the question, but some of the meforshim do take that it is talking about like the literal bracha. But yeah. Okay. Who was next? Ariel, is that leftover hand or is that?
Yeah, that's leftover hand.
Okay. You can put it down if you want. Avital.
I was wondering, I mean, I don't know if this is like a more basic question, but like, I just don't understand. Like, it seems that the Russia, in order to like destroy a society or whatever we're going to say that means, just his mouth seems like so small in comparison with like all the good of tzaddikim. So I guess like, I'm wondering, is this like a trend in the real world? Like, oh, like just a tiny bit of bad could like ruin all the good, or like, like it's,
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm going to add that. I'm going to tack that on to question number 3, which is like, it seems like, he's doing a lot of damage just with his mouth. Now, in all fairness, or they, I guess, right? The Rishayim are doing a lot of damage just with their mouths. In all fairness, I mean, Hitler did a real number with his mouth, right? I mean, and not just Hitler, like all the real Rishayim, did, it's through their mouth. So like, it's not, but in terms of the proportion, like it makes it, you feel like the tzaddikim needs to do a lot more work, or a lot more needs to happen.
Yeah, because I was gonna say it's all. I was thinking like it just says like their bracha, like it doesn't say like a specific aspect of it. Like even though like you really could do so much damage with your mouth, and like there's that famous story with like I think it was I don't even want to say, I don't know, where they
Okay.
like throw somebody speaks Lashon Hara and they
All the
throw like
feathers?
this pillowcase, with all the
no one knows the
feathers.
source of the story. Yeah,
I
everyone
thought
knows
it was the
story.
Chavetz Chaim, but I'm not sure. So
Sounds like
I'm
him.
not-
It could easily be him. Yeah.
It's always
but
Chafetz Chaim.
Yep.
yeah, so but like all of the bracha of tzaddikim, I don't know, that just sounds like it would, like in my head on the scale of life, it would win, but I don't
Right.
know if that's true.
I know. No, it's a good question. In fact, I kind of want to put that as a separate question here, even though it is related to the four, because it's really a question about both halves. Like what I'm going to say. What? Okay. Who holds more power here? Okay, I'm putting it in like Russia terms. Okay, who holds more power here? The tzaddikim or the Rishaim? And then it says it seems like the Rishaim are doing a lot of damage to the mouth. It seems out of proportion to the effect of the tzaddikim. Yeah, I'll just put that as a like that's the type of question that like like sometimes the Rishonim will say like yesh li tmua, like one should be astonished. It's not like a factual question or difficult. It's just like really like it's like a
Because I was thinking if it's true, like potentially that could be like an answer for how we say like tzaddik baralo, like I don't know, like some sort of thing into that.
Right. Yeah. Bonus points if you can answer tzaddik baralo with the pasuk. Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying though. Yeah. Okay, Zach.
Wait, what's tzaddik baralo?
Why do bad things happen to good people?
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, only the biggest question in in metaphysics. Yeah.
Okay, so a clarification and then a question, but I want to start with the clarification. Is you mentioned that the city doesn't necessarily have to be a city, but like a group
Commune.
Is organization
is good. Yeah, organization is good.
Okay.
I'm just gonna mention that here. Al HaTorah says kares, not kares like cutting off. With a kares is organization of people. Yeah.
Because so now the question is this statement or truism limited to just that?
Okay, right.
Or is it past
Yeah.
that as well?
Okay, that's good. So is this pasuk limited to a kares, or can the idea be applied beyond that?
And the implication of that question being like why is it in this, if it is limited, then why is it limited to this type of situation?
Yeah.
Can we ask definition
and if it's
questions?
not limited, then why did he say it with this
Yeah.
potential limitation?
Why either way?
Can I just ask a few definition questions as well?
Yeah, let me just go. I think Michael's next. Yeah, Michael.
Oh, my bad.
I wanted to somewhat co-opt Avital's question and reframe it, also tipping my thumb on the scale for a potential idea.
Okay.
What is the contrast?
Did you learn in another pasuk that you shouldn't put your thumb on the scale? Okay. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, what is the contrast or relationship between Birkas Tzadikim and P Rishayim? Meaning maybe those are related ideas, the brachos of a tzaddik and the mouth of the Russia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like that question is also going to land in the realm of number 5.
Wait, could you explain it again?
Well, giving a bit of an answer, it could be that the Birchas Tzadikim or Birchas Yisharim are the things they're doing with their mouth, just like the Rishayim are doing their things with their mouth. We're just not calling it Kala. In this case, we're saying P versus Bracha.
Right. So the way you're answering, or the way you're commenting on Avital's question is saying that really it is proportionate. Like it is, each one is doing the same thing.
It could be. I'm leaving it as a question because I just want to leave it open.
Right. So I actually want to jump in really quickly before I forget this question, and say, okay, I don't know if this is one question or two questions, but is there a middle ground? Okay. And by that, I mean, like, what happens when the tzaddikim aren't blessing the Yisharim, right? We're Yisharim? Yeah. Yisharim. Have I been saying tzaddikim the whole time? I have. Whoops. Whatever. We'll go back and fix it during the questioning part.
There's another good question that I wanted to add.
Okay. What happens when the Yisharim aren't blessing and or like being? Let's make it neutral. When there is no Birkas Yisharim and no P Rishayim, right? What
And
does
or, right? Meaning
does
like
that city look like? And also, I meant another thing by the middle ground thing. Oh, which is this is really related to Avital's thing, which is what happens if there are both, right? Who wins, right? Like if there's a tug of war, you know? City can't be raised and destroyed simultaneously, seemingly. Okay, this is Ariel. You don't know how to use the system. You were next, but you didn't raise your hand. Whatever. Do you still have your questions, Ariel?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Can you go back to the pasuk for a second?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, like, what's the definition of a yashar in this context?
Oh, good, right, correct.
And
We've been thinking about this for so long, we forgot to ask the basic definition questions. Let's just put that at the top. Okay. What is a yashar in this context? And what is a Russian?
And what's the setting? Is the setting where you are trying to build an organization or a city, or is it that you already have something
Right.
and you want to raise it even further up?
Right. So let's actually ask that question at the outset of Zach's question, which is what is the decision-making scenario here? Okay, so is this limited to a car that could be applied beyond that, and why either way? What like are you endeavoring to do? In fact, you know what? Let's just convert that into our usual question, which is who's the audience and what is the practical application? I think that'll answer your question, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And lastly, with the Pirasham, right, is that I don't know, my intuition is saying that it's like a limitation on what the Russia is doing. It's almost like the Russia is not like being like doing 100% of his riches over here.
Right. I mean, because it doesn't sound like he's acting, right? Sounds like
Yeah,
he's
it
just
doesn't sound like
talking.
he's acting. So is he actively involved, or is he kind of like a whisper into the people's ears, and
that's a really
they're
good
the
question.
ones?
Can I also
I'm gonna-
frame it as can I offer an alternative way of asking that question
Sure.
because it expanded
Yeah.
another thought, which
Yeah.
is
Mine wasn't
it
good enough.
well you
just
triggered
gotta go.
something. Is
Zach's
is
blessing raises the question.
well, let's
Yeah.
first see. So is saying that it's the mouth of the Russia, saying that like that's all it takes is the mouth, but like had he done more, it would be even worse.
Right.
Or is it the opposite, saying like all of his other actions are like fruitful and meaningless, like it doesn't even have an impact, but like
Right.
this is where he's able to do some damage.
Okay, right. So I'm gonna actually I like both of them. I'm gonna tack both of those onto the first question, which is I'm gonna say, especially considering the fact that our pasuk limits the activities of each group to their speech, or to like whatever, to bracha and P, right? As opposed to actions, right? Does this imply that they are only doing these activities, or that like, can we make a kal v'chomer? Can we make a kal v'chomer? Okay.
Ask a question on that question.
Yeah.
In terms of like the second thing, Zach, that you said about how like this would it could be almost like everything's fruitless except for like the words. Wouldn't that sound like it's giving advice to like Rishaim? Like even like you're not successful anywhere else, but like your mouth is where you're gonna like put your money at, you know?
Yeah, there's one thing I can answer that one. There's one thing going for you, for us here, is that Rishaim are not learning Mishlei, you know?
Well,
And I think a lot of the psukim in Mishlei that talk about what the Rishaim do by way of destruction if a Russia were to learn that to use that, it would be destructive, and you do get cases. I mean, there is such a thing as like chachamim lahera, like people who are chachamim who use their chachma for evil, so that's always going to be a risk in Mishlei. So it's a valid concern. I don't think it's a problematic
I think that
question.
like Mishlei is just making a study of like what these things are, right?
Right.
In other words,
Yeah.
like that knowledge could be used for good or bad, but when it
Right.
comes down to it, it's just a study.
Right.
therefore-
Yeah.
Wait, how
the-
would it help to know this? Let's say it was the latter, that it is the point saying that like the tzaddikim's like pez, like where their like power is.
Yeah.
Power.
Whatever.
Do you mean Rishayim?
Yeah. So how would that be helpful to? I guess
Because-
that would.
Because if we want to save the city from Rishayim, then we have to know that that's going to be their most powerful tool.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Okay. Yosef next, and then Rivki.
Is the Birkas Yisharim a natural thing that just like happens secondarily to them, like being tzaddikim, right? Like it's just like, oh, I do good acts, I learn, and I do good things for the community, etc. And then like not actively, but there's a bracha that just happens secondarily. They don't actively have to do, or is it no? You have to like engage in bracha.
Okay, yeah. So let's build that into the second question. I think that's going to be the fork in the road here. Is bracha something that happens to Yesharim, or is it something they do? And we had a similar
Passive
question.
or active?
Yeah, we had a similar question in the last pasuk. The two tzaddikim. Does that mean when good happens to the tzaddikim, or does it mean when they are good or do good? Similar ambiguity here. Yeah, Rivki.
Yeah, I was just wondering. I thought it was interesting that it's not that the pasuk is like necessarily cut in half in terms of like, oh, like this happens to the tzaddik and then this happens to the rasha and this is why it's good and bad, but more so that like, why are we not saying there's no consequence for the rasha unless we're assuming that in the first half that like the city being raised up like automatically. I guess I'm asking like, are we assuming that each half is the opposite for the other half, meaning like that they're both related in that sense?
I missed it. Say it again. So
Okay,
I get the point that there's no consequence stated, right?
Mhm.
There's no consequence to them.
To
Right? That
them,
was-
yeah,
that was-
individually. So I
Right.
was asking because there's no clear-cut consequence for either of them. I mean, more so, I guess, the Russia, are we
Right.
assuming that like the consequences are found in the opposite halves? Meaning that with the city being raised up, because I was thinking, why is the Russia's not getting any negative thing? It's just saying that with their mouth, it'll be torn down, kind of like what everyone else was just talking about with
Right.
saying like, oh, like it's using his mouth. Like Avital was like, oh, like wouldn't that tell him to use it?
Yeah, so I think it is a good question. What is the consequence? I mean, I think plain pshat is that it's bad if the city that you're living in is torn down. So like the Rishayim are going to destroy their own city. And it's just like it's good for the tzaddikim to build up their own city.
Also, are we assuming then that the
I keep
destruction?
on saying tzaddikim, sorry, Yesharim. Yeah.
Are we assuming that the destruction that like the Rishayim want that destruction because like do they know that it's bad for them, or is it
So
destruction that they
that's a
want?
fair question. Okay, yeah. So is the Russia intending to tear down the city, or is this something that is a consequence? Okay, and is it from his framework? In other words, in his framework, is this result good or bad? Yeah, Michael.
And also,
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
exactly. But I was also just gonna say that it would be interesting in terms of the pasuk before that I was thinking about consequences, and maybe we can say that like with the other one was talking about the destruction of the wicked. So
Yeah.
now it's talking about like the opposite if we're really including that.
Right. Yeah. You could definitely get a lot more wiggle room if you treat these as a unit. Yeah, Michael.
I apologize if this question was already added. I wasn't sure if it was on the list.
Sure.
Who is the intended audience of this?
Oh yeah, I added that in sneakily at the end. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think we are probably at the point where we have most of the questions and should think about them now. So for those who are new, we take our thinking minute here, where we make this as fitting on the screen as we can, which is difficult. and then we think for a minute, and then the people who have half-baked ideas get to go first, and the people who have like full explanations have to wait. Hold on, let me just try to make this more seeable here, visible. How do I do this usually? Oh, like that. Oh, I think that's even worse. Oh, it's so small. Well, oh, wait a minute.
Also, you're not using the full screen space. I don't know if that helps.
Oh, like that? Does that not cover?
There's still a bit more showing, but yeah.
All right. Fine. All right, let's just use it. Okay, then I can't see it. So I'm gonna be mishleically selfish here. Oh, this is bad. Okay. Sorry, it's so small. Okay. All right, let's take our thinking minute.
Rabbi, can I
Yeah.
ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't know if this was addressed, but is the Birkas Yesharim the bracha that the Yesharim are receiving, or that they're like somehow that's the contrast to the Pirushim?
Yeah. So I was trying to get at that in this part. Is the bracha something that happens to Yisharim, or is it something they do? And I was just trying to word it in the most generic way possible. But you could say, is it something they receive, or is it something that they are like saying or doing? Is that?
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep, no problem.
It's not possible to add the other pasuk, is it?
Oh yeah, I think actually, you know what? Let me. I think I could add it and fit everything in except for the Rashi and the Sadigan, which is not essential here.
Thanks.
Right, it's smaller because it's the last pasuk from before. Okay. Oh, almost. There we go. Okay, who has a half-baked idea? Ariel?
All right, I'm using the system.
Yes, I see. Just like a tzaddik.
Okay, so I think maybe you could say that. Okay, so I'm just gonna say that there are two parties here.
Okay.
There's the one speaking, and then there are the listeners.
Mhm.
So I think that this pasuk is focused on the listeners. It's on the receiving end. So I'm just working with that framework. Okay, so I think that, so the blessing, the bracha of the Yashar, the city will be raised up, meaning that, like, I know, like, a way you can define a bracha is, someone giving like praise, like you'll be successful,
Right.
like great, great feedback, or, positive, reinforcement, like all those good things that can help boost a person's morals, and like he'll use that, to grow,
Right.
right? So over here is the people, like the people will have a choice whether or not they'll use it or not.
Okay.
So like, so too, with the second half of the puzzle, like like the mouth of the Russia, like people can listen to that, and that can ultimately, be their downfall. It's almost like, the way I see it is like, you have a group of people, you don't really have a tzaddik or a Russia in that group. You just have a group of people who are looking for sources to figure things out. And they don't really know, or they're not sure, or maybe they're being seduced into one way versus the other.
Yeah. Okay, so I like the direction you're taking, and there are meforshim who take that kind of direction. I think the next question that you'd have to answer in developing your idea would be like, or at least the question I'm not quite satisfied with is, bracha is a weird way to talk about improving people. Like, yeah, you're wishing for someone to succeed, but like if it said like the guidance or the counsel or like the advice, or the teachings of the Yisharim, that would be like, okay, that's going to be great, right? But bracha is weird, and even if it said the praise that the Yisharim give, like bracha is a weird thing. Like you're saying, like you said, like may you succeed in your endeavors. Like it's just a weird limiting mode to like have an impact on people. And then Pirushaim, I would just want to understand why that is such a vague general term, and also understand how the mouth of the Rishaim like tears down the city.
I'm not really following your first question. Like, I'm not really understanding.
If I give you a multiple choice test and I said, what type of statement from the Yisharim would have a beneficial effect on people, like in terms of improving them, right? I can think of a lot of multiple choice guesses that go rank above bracha. Bracha is just weird.
Okay.
If I'm understanding you right, aren't you saying that the bracha is like having a beneficial impact on the people? The recipient?
Mostly in their decision-making process.
Yeah. So like, how does a bracha have an impact on your decision-making process?
Well, it's going to create like an opportunity. It's going to create a specific mentality that they'll.
Oh, so you have to elaborate on that. I think that's what needs a little bit more clarity. But I like the approach. Yeah, you want to add to that?
Okay.
No, just Yashar. Does Yashar mean like straight as well? Like,
Yeah, straight or upright. Yeah.
okay, man.
Yeah. Okay. Isaiah, you're up.
All right, so I guess I'm thinking of like a couple slightly different ways to take this, either specifically in terms of lashon hara or just in general about like I guess speech directed towards negative negative actions.
Okay, those are two viable approaches. Yeah.
Right, but either way, I would say that like with the Rishaim, you have like either it's talking about people in the city who are speaking lashon hara, which can have, I think, like effects that could reach about the city and like bring about destruction, like different ben adam, like negative consequences that can happen that can tear down the city. And so the Rishaim will literally use their mouth to cause that destruction. Right. And the Yisharim will abstain from speaking lashon hara, and that abstinence will cause the city to be on a higher level. And like to avoid those bein adam la'adam issues that the city would have. It did have lashon hara. Alternatively, you could say that the Rishaim, not specifically lashon hara, but also any speech that is directed towards like evil intentions, like could also be dissent among people or other types of crime or things like that they talk about, that they plan, and other people hear about it and maybe they pick up on it and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea or something like that. Like I think evil kind of spread, and that can bring down the city. And the Yisharim, this is what's different about this approach, is that they actually their speech is used towards good. Like they teach people and they try to do good things with their speech, and I think that would be raising up the city.
Okay, so I like the second half. I mean, I like your both approaches to the second half, and I actually think that because the pasuk uses this general term of pi rishayim, I'm fine saying it's referring to all types of destructive speech. Whether it's lashon hara or whether it is talking about their like promoting their bad values. I think all of these things result in destroying the city, and I think that it's reasonable to say that it's all of them. The first half, in both of your interpretations, I'm not sold on. Can you just remind me in your first approach how you said Birkas Yisharim?
Well, I would say that the bracha is is they're refraining from speaking lashon hara.
Yeah, so that I don't like because bracha to me is a positive thing. So
I would say that it's the positive is the effect that is caused by them refraining from lashon hara.
Okay, the effect that is called. Okay, so that I'm more open to. And then similarly, and then my question on the second idea you gave for the first half is that my same question that I asked on Ariel is if it's talking about the effect, like the parallel effect that the speech of the Yesharim has on the people in the city, bracha is just a weird candidate for that. Like guidance, teaching, rulership, management, encouragement, like all these many other things that like I could actually see.
Can I elaborate on that point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think that you could say that it's kind of like the impact it has on the individual's mentality and like what they do with that information.
Okay,
so yeah, it could have positive influence or whatever, but like at the end of the day, it's going to boil down to what they are thinking about and like what and how they're going to proceed with their mindset. If they have a mindset that's very negative, they're going to let all these negative thoughts intervene. And I think like that's the aspect of the lashon hara thing, because I do also know that the Rambam says that by lashon hara, like it affects two people. Like it's a problem on the person saying the lashon hara, and it's an issue on the person who's listening to the lashon hara.
Right.
And what does that mean? Why is it on the listener? It's because he's going to use that lashon hara, and it's going to affect his own decisions or his own framework on how he relates to that specific person. Right, so like if he takes the words of the Rasha, right, he's going to be what's the word? He's going to be, his thoughts will just be destructive, and he just won't know, or he just won't be utilizing in the proper way.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I think that is clearer than what you were saying before. So just I'm not gonna deploy like the full idea of what I'm saying, but I'm gonna combine one thing you said now and one thing you said earlier. Is that when someone who is a yashar gives a bracha, it is articulating a vision of what success looks like for this person. So it's more than just teaching. It is articulating implicitly. It's implicitly articulating a value system, and then like instilling a motivation to achieve that, and that can open up opportunities or avenues for success in that person's mind that they wouldn't have ordinarily seen.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Was that Avital?
I just don't exactly understand how you're getting that from the Birkat Yesharim. You're saying that.
Wait. Yeah, go ahead, Avital.
You're saying that it's based on the fact that the second half is talking about like the mouth of the wicked, that the first part is talking about the Yesharim's words.
So there's two things happening here, right? One is what you just said, which is that we're inferring that bracha here is not what happens to them, but what they say. And yeah, that we're getting because it's the most direct opposite to the second half, right? The Rishaim use their mouths for evil stuff, and the Yesharim use their mouths for bracha. And the second move I'm making is just to try to understand what Ariel is saying is how does a bracha affect somebody? And I'm saying that what it does is you are articulating a wish of goodwill for the person, or it's tefillah of goodwill, depending on like what type of bracha you're talking about. And that articulates like a vision of success and kind of like gives them a prompt to like seek it, An
example of that is like, when Yaakov gives brachas to his sons, it's kind of like seeing positive attributes in them that give them, it's like seeing the best in someone.
So it's actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because if you look at the brachos, a lot of them, or not a lot of them, there's some of them that are negative, right? And so if you look at bracha as simply just a well-wishing, then it looks like a ridiculous kind of bracha. But if the purpose of a bracha is to like point out the avenues by which you could succeed, in a way that's like usable, that you can aspire to that, then giving someone like information that, about what to avoid could be equally part of the bracha. Yeah. Okay, Rivki?
Okay, so that was a lot of good ideas. So I feel like, I hope I remember what I was going to say.
I hope so too.
Okay, so I was looking at both psukim because like you said, there's more wiggle room. But so I was thinking that with these two, that we can look at it as like a holistic perspective of both like a city or whatever word you want to use for a congregation of people, and also like into each of these characters, because it doesn't say Sadiqim and Sadiqim, it says like Sadiq and Rasham, and then it says Yesharim and Rashayim.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that with this whole thing with the city, it's really telling us about all the characters. We asked what the audience is. So I'm saying I really think this could be for everyone, because you can either be like a Rasha or a Tzaddik or a Yashar, or you can be like a Benoni or whatever in the middle. So like with both of these sukkim. So I think that that's number one. And then also with raising up and tearing down, I was thinking that the Yesharim, we're learning about them in terms of like what their values are and where they see themselves in terms of the city. And the Rasham, we also learn how they see themselves and what they want. So with the Yesharim, they don't see themselves as like, oh, like they want to be in charge and like all these different things. They don't have that ego, and they have that holistic perspective. And therefore, through their positive and beneficial ideas, both like themselves and the people around them will be raised up through whatever means you want to say.
Yeah.
And then with the Rashaim, I'm saying that I think the tearing down is that the Rashaim want to be in charge. The Rashaim, they want their ideas, and they want whatever they want to be carried out to happen, whether it's good for other people or not. Like they could really only see, like, it's like I was thinking of like blinders on a horse. Like they really only see what they want, even if it's not beneficial for other people.
Right.
And also like overall, it really is about speech as well as position, because like the whole thing I feel like is either like joyous song or rejoicing, or then like bracha, or like P. So just a lot of different ideas.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, I think all the ideas you're saying are true, and it is painting a good picture of like what this city, the two forces of the city are like. And I think that it's that now the only question is like now it's too general, like what is the specific thing saying? But all the ideas you're saying are true, and it's a good depiction. Okay, Avital.
Yeah, I had one like idea, but also just one thing that I thought was, I don't know if this is actually, when you read like a book in school and they like try to find things that you're not sure if the author actually meant.
Yeah.
So in terms of the being the mouth of the wicked, that from the first pasuk, that when there is destruction of the wicked, when there's none of like his mouth like talking kind of, that's when like the void is filled by joyous songs. So I thought it was
interesting.
really cool.
That does work nicely.
But the idea that I was thinking of was that the first part I was thinking is purposely more vague. Like bracha, like we were saying, like to do good or give good is like a very vague concept and could mean so many different things, but that in some ways it doesn't matter, because from the Russia, when people say things, whether you're the person saying things or you're the person listening, like Ariel was saying, how there's more than one person affected with Lashon Hara, it automatically like shades your view on something. So let's say a city where there's tons and tons and tons of potential, when you have somebody who's either shades your perspective in a manner of like, whether it's in a way that they thought would be good for themselves or whatever it is that shades the perspective, I think you lose out. So I think the pasuk could be, let's say, to somebody who's either listening to these people to realize that all it takes is for one person, like at one point I was a preschool teacher, and one kid goes, this activity's babyish, and you have the whole class. This could be like you worked your whole life on this one activity and it's the best thing in the whole world. And one kid goes, it's babyish, and like that's it. And like that was the destruction of the whole whatever it is. And I think like for us to realize that like, oh, how was the movie or whatever it is? And so I was like, not good. And you're like, all right, forget it. It's like totally left your mind. Meanwhile, people spend their whole lives like constructing this whole idea and concept or whatever. But
That's a good example. That really illustrates the power of the speech. So okay, so I got so lost in that last part that I just got to regroup myself for the first part. Oh yeah, what were you saying about the Birkas Yesharim? You're saying it's vague because it in a sense it doesn't even matter. Could you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, you could. So a city, I was talking about how like the city could have like so much potential, and it could be any like blessing or any good that like the Yesharim bring to the table, but just one thing that could shade the perspective, like it doesn't matter. It could be the best thing that they give, or it could be something small, like by the fact that there are good people saying nice things, people could be in better moods or whatever it is, but it doesn't matter what good they're bringing to the table, because one kid goes, it's babyish, and that's like
so you're almost learning this as saying but, right? That like even with the blessing of the Yesharim, which raises the city, or like whatever, like nevertheless, one, the mouth of the Yesharim can tear it all down.
Yeah, I think I think that makes sense.
Right. I hear what you're saying. So what would be interesting, just to not even flesh out a full idea here, this might be supplying so we in the previous pasuk, we said, according to Sad Yagon, which is what Ariel's approach was in the last pasuk, that it's saying that with the good of the tzaddikim, the city should rejoice, and with the destruction of Rishayim, there should be a joyous song. And this could be giving a reason why it's so, actually maybe this fits in better with Isaiah's idea. Isaiah's idea on the last pasuk was that you really have to destroy the Rishayim first, because they can undermine the destruction of the Rishayim is the basis for building up the good of the city, and your idea is really highlighting the urgency of it, that because the Rishayim are like dynamite, that they can just blow everything up, it is critical that like you make sure that they get destroyed, and don't think that like in your preschool example, right? Like again, it's the classic mistake of if I just bring in enough good, then that's going to make everything better. But no, there's a phenomenon where you can bring in a lot of good, but then the nature of the bad is that it's going to poison the entire thing. Now, isn't that a English proverb about apples? One bad apple spoils the bunch or something, the bushel.
I do remember my grandma.
Right, because like if you, the example I know of, like, have you ever had like like you get a bag of like oranges or like tangerines, and like if one of them is moldy, it like the mold just spreads to all of them, like that's like there's no logic of, oh, if I have 10, then it's gonna like cancel out all the moldy ones. Like no, like the mold is gonna spread, yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, Michael.
Okay, so I want to say similar to Avital and Rifki.
Okay.
So first, I focused on the audience, which I think is primarily the community. Okay. And then when I see the mouth of somebody with regards to the community, I see like leadership. So in contrast to the previous verse, which is referencing like who you should be looking up to in the city, that you should be looking up to tzaddikim, and you should be really happy when the bad are destroyed. This one, I think, is all about the Yesharim. Okay. And I think that there's a reason it's a step back, and it's not the Birkas Tzadikim, it's actually specifically the Yesharim. It's saying that the members of a community, if they are faithful and upright, simply like upholding the values of that community, then it is built up, it is maintained and raised up. Mm-hmm. And I think similar to what Avital was saying is that it's like intentionally vague. I think it is a bracha for a city to have Yesharim. And then like the fact that there's P in the second half is referencing what is this bracha? I think it's a community. It's the communication of all of them. I mean, the mouth aspect is commenting on both. So with all of the Yesharim working together, the city is built up. But it's saying with the mouth of the Russia, a single individualistic person who's focused on his own self-satisfaction, he can destroy the whole thing. So this is like, whereas the first one is saying you should be looking up to tzaddikim and be happy when the Rishayim die, this is saying that the Rishayim can put cracks in the cohesion of the city, and it's the faithful upright that are maintaining it. So you, the members of the community, should be like a Yasha.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that. That is a good way to make the two complement each other. Okay, Yosef, and then we'll go to some meforshim here.
I kind of think that the first part is saying that like if you just have like morally upstanding people who like have all of their actions in line with morality, then the society in general will benefit, right? Because you won't have like you won't have robbing, you won't have like murder, you won't have crime in general, and therefore the society will prosper, right?
Right.
But when you have, I don't know why it's Pirashayim so much, but I think Rishayim will do the opposite, which is that when you have people who are not going according to a set like moral code, they will destroy the city. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, so you're learning Yesharim is just the what definition are you using for Yesharim again?
I'm kind of saying it's that people who have their actions in line with a moral code, right?
Okay.
So like if you don't steal because you think it's wrong to steal, not just because it's like, oh, it doesn't work socially, right? Or like, oh, it's you can get punished, right? No, it's
yeah.
because there's an abstract concept of stealing is completely wrong. Right.
So can you explain though why that is necessary in order to build up the city, as opposed to, like, I would think that the actions themselves are really what are going to build up the city. Like, who cares why they are, what the motive is,
I think that if you have people who are not, if they're not morally against like crime or like things that are destructive to the city, it's going to slip through the cracks when there's an opportunity to do it that's
Mhm.
not like for the reason. Like for example, if it's punishment, right, that they're
Right.
avoiding, right? Well, if there's an opportunity where they won't get caught,
Right.
then there's no reason not to do it.
Right. Okay, so
Right.
that's a good definition of Yashar, right? That is a
So
good definition of Yashar.
And
Yeah.
it makes sense with the upright thing, right? And like
Yeah.
Yasher being straight, right?
Right.
Is that it's consistency.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
And it's a
That's
result of a moral code.
all right. That's good. Yeah, and I also still I'm bothered by the same thing you are in terms of the why does it say P Roshaim? According to that, it seems too narrow. Okay, Zach.
So yeah, two like just thoughts, incomplete thoughts. One is just on a structural idea.
Yeah.
I sort of feel like maybe a way, because like we've been asking and kind of making some suggestions on like the weight of the two, of one versus the other. So maybe structurally, a way that kind of clicks for me is that if we look at a city that was built up or a city that was destroyed, this tells us why. So you say, oh, a city was built up, it was because there was blessing
Oh, interesting. Okay.
from Yesharim. And oh, a city was destroyed, it was because of the mouth of the wicked.
Yeah.
And part of why I like that structure is I think that it puts more weight into the hands of the regular people, meaning ultimately it's up to the class, or it's up to the city, or it's up to whatever that body is to decide whether they're going to jump on board. Like in Avital's example, it's like if that one kid didn't say, oh, it's babyish, then like the whole class didn't have something to jump on the bandwagon with.
Right.
But that doesn't mean every time someone says that it's a sure shot that it's going to be destroyed. I mean, maybe with little children, it's like the wrong example, but if you have a group of adults and like one person says, oh, this is stupid, maybe everyone's going to jump on board, but maybe not. So like the ultimate weight, I think, gives more, power to the people. And like, if it was destroyed, then it was because of this. And if it was, uplifted, then it was because of that.
Wait, so just a quick question to make sure I'm understanding this idea. So I hear the dynamic you're talking about. So, but if it's for the people, so then why is it emphasizing Yesharim and Roshaim?
Because now we know, like, it's kind of like telling us what the seeds are, meaning you need a seed for a tree to grow, but like you also need water and sunlight. So it's like the people are the ones who are going to like choose which seed to foster, like, are you
okay. So in
gonna...
other words, you are still saying there are actual Yesharim in there and there are Roshaim, but then those are just realities. But then whichever ones the people side with is going to determine the fate of the city.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Is that when Zach was first speaking about his idea, talking about his idea, I felt like that was very complimentary to what I was saying.
Remind me.
I think so also.
I thought that the way he was structuring it was he's putting the power into the people, where based off of what the Russia and what the Yasher says or what they do, and that's gonna have like a direct consequence to the people.
Yeah, this also fits in very well with what Isaiah was saying in terms of the for the second half, definitely in terms of if the people are affected by the what the Roshaim are saying, like the giving into Lashon Hara and stuff like that, then that's going to rot the core of the city.
Yeah, thank you, Zach. I appreciate that.
Did you have two ideas, Zach? Was there a second?
Yeah. The other one is.
Hey, before you say,
oh, sorry. Yeah, Rifki. Sorry. Yeah.
No, just on that specific idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that you're focusing on like the people rather than the actual characters in the pasuk. But I'm just wondering, are we saying, well, first I wanted to say that, like, can we then say that it's almost like a correlation between, like, let's say if the city was built up by that Yashar and that Tzaddik, then the people will have like kind of like with infections, like the more you're exposed to something, then like the better you have a chance of whatever, like fighting it. So like if you have those values and you really truly understand what's good for society, then you'll have more protection against those Rashaim, because there will be Rashaim, and like no matter what, like, so if there will be, then maybe we can say that like through Zach's idea that through the Yesharim helping the city grow, then the people themselves won't be as susceptible. But if we don't have those people being influenced, then I think it'll be much harder to have that protection against the Rashaim.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Yeah. I also want to add that this does fit in very well with the previous pasuk, because the previous pasuk, again, according to some of the approaches we took, it was talking to the people, right? It was saying you guys should, align your values with the tzaddikim to the point where you're happy when they receive good, and you should align your values against the Rashaim so that when they're destroyed, then you sing joyously, and then that will lead to the result in the next pasuk.
Yeah, but then also the reason why I was saying that was, let's say if we didn't have what I just said and we were only listening to what Zach had just said, then I'm just confused about, let's say like the people, are we assuming that people will just be susceptible to the Russia if they have both? Like that's why we asked that question, like if there's both happening, then are we just assuming that the Russia will win?
So that I think that the idea that I was trying to pull out was that it's up to the people to make that call, kind of. So when you have both present, if the people choose to focus on the values, let's say, or however, I didn't specify exactly the blessings. I was focusing more on mechanics, but if they focus on what the Yashar is bringing to the city, then the city will be built up. And if they instead focus on what the Russia's bringing to the city, then it'll be torn down. And the way I was framing it is that if you look at a city that was built up, the reason why it was built up was because the city benefited from what a Yashar brought to the table. And if you looked at a city that was torn down,
and the people align themselves with it.
Right, exactly. By aligning themselves with it, yeah. And then if you look at a city that was torn down, mechanically, it was because of what the Russia brought to the table with his mouth.
Right.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. Mike, did you have something?
Wait, should I do?
I saw Mike. I wasn't sure if that was in reference to your first idea, but then he put his hand down.
I had my hand raised about something. I was wondering if I could attempt just the contrast between the term birkas and p.
Sure.
Just maybe it's talking about different modes of expression, like premeditated expression that's constructive versus
the definition of bracha.
yeah, as opposed to the P Rishon, it sounds more like a passive expression where it's just referencing the medium of expression.
Right, like whatever's in your mouth.
Yeah.
Right, that's good. Yeah, like you're using your mouth to as a force of constructive tosefes tov, that's bracha, and then the other just their mouth. Yeah, that's good detail there. Zach, you had a second approach.
Yeah, I'm almost wondering if that complements what the second approach is, but I was wondering if maybe what it could mean. Again, this isn't a holistic thought, but on what it could be referencing by building up and tearing down is, I wonder if it could be talking about like referencing purpose. So like if you have a group of people that, are meeting periodically, and among them you have Yesharim, then the purpose of that group will be elevated to some more meaningful purpose. And if you have Rashaim there that kind of will ultimately take away that purpose, kind of similar. And I can't remember if we talked about this last week, but I think we've mentioned it recently, like the Rambam's point about like a tzaddik that rests in the shade of a building in a foreign land, it like gives purpose to that building because it benefited the tzaddik. So it's
Right.
like if you have an organization, the blessing of the Yisharim is that like they uplift that organization and give it purpose, whereas the Rishaim do the opposite. They take away that purpose and they make it more mundane and less meaningful.
Okay, I mean, I hear the idea you're saying. I guess I'm less enchanted by it because to me right now it doesn't sound quite as practical as your first idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, I'd need to think more about how to
Okay.
turn that into a practical one. It was just kind of
Sure.
threads
No,
of
I
thought.
hear the reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I propose we do. Okay, because we had a lot of a lot of ideas this time. Okay, I want to read the three meforshim that look like they have the most potential. Okay, and I feel like when I read them, then it's going to resonate with certain people based on their approaches, and then we could use that to try to like consolidate formulated final ideas. I don't care who we ascribe them to. In other words, this might be mixing and matching what different people said in different mefarshim. Okay, so I just want to read them just to expose you to, it seems like that's the name of the game tonight, is like lots of approaches, but I want to, our goal is to like get at least one or two like ideas. Okay, so the three that I saw that looked the most fruitful are Metzudas David is the first one. Okay, so here's what Metzudas David says. He says, oops, and you know what? I might as well just type this out in English as we go so we can have it to reference here. Give me a second to get my fonts all in line. Okay, so Metzudas David says, so he says, Be'es ba habracha leisharim, when blessing, at the time when blessing comes to the Yesharim, v'rak hema lamala, and only they are on top, v'yanhigu es bnei ha'ir, and they rule, or they what's the word for manhig? I'm blanking on manhig. Lead is good. Yeah, they lead the citizens with upright bahadracha yashar, with upright guidance. Then it will be exalted. It will be raised up through this. Okay. Aval, but kasher habracha hi b'fi ksilim. Okay, this is a move. No one read it this way. But when the blessing is in the mouth of the fools, the rock hemalamala, and only they are on top. The alpihem kol divrei ir, and everything in the city is in accordance with their words. Teharis ayidezeh, it will be torn down through this. So what attracted me to this, I'm not saying an idea yet. What attracted me to this is just it's a really clean reading of it, So the question is, what would it mean when we still have to answer, what is this blessing? The blessing comes to the Yesharim. Sounds like he's saying that the blessing is that the people are following what he's doing, right?
I mean, he's just substituting Excel for Russia. I'm sorry, Russia for Excel. I don't know how can.
Oh, that's fine. Okay, yeah. I wonder if that's a typo or if that's a. But we'll ignore that. Ignore that. It doesn't matter. You can swap all the terms.
But they're two different things. People.
Whatever.
Yeah. You can swap all of the terms.
Yeah. Actually, I do want to check and see if that's a typo though. Hold on. Let me just check my Torah time. Yeah, I didn't even notice that when I was copying and pasting. Yeah, he says that. That's funny. Yeah, I don't know. All right, but the idea is going to be true no matter what, though, right? So
also, also from this perspective, like the blessing is in the mouth of the fools. Like the blessing is in the mouth of, like, why this language? Both, like, why does Shlomo say bracha by one and in the mouth of by the other? Or
right.
He just.
So no, like that's I can't think what I like about this thing. That like in other words, like this. Hold on. Birkas Yesharim Tarum Kares. Like in other words, he's learning that blessing is that which is a phenomenon of the mouth. So with the Yesharim with blessing in their mouth will raise up the city. But when it's in the mouth of the Rishaim, then they'll tear it down.
Yeah, I also, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just wondering, could we also interpret it? This is like also based off of Zach's idea from before, like the first idea. Could we also say that like, according to the people, like anything could be quote unquote a bracha, meaning like, let's say like if we're again talking about Hitler, like the people were so like deprived of like everything that was needed that like they really thought that what he was saying was good. And obviously like that's not the best example because it wasn't as intense in the beginning, but like I feel like we can also understand, not related to what who was it, Matzias David, what he just said, but that like the bracha could seem like a bracha, but depending on your values and also how the actual person is saying it, it's not necessarily a bracha.
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, I want to combine that with what Michael was saying. Okay, what Michael and Simone was saying, which is that a bracha is a consciously formulated expression of like the good or whatever. Like, you know, so it's really, the bracha here is talking about like your like when the rhetoric of the good is possessed by the Yesharim and people are like sold on that, then the city is going to be exalted. But when the formulation of bracha that determines the good of everyone in the city is really determined by the Rishayim, then that's going to destroy it. So and that's why it's called bracha, because maybe I'm starting to get what you're saying by bracha here. Bracha is a verbalization that results in good. Okay. So that can have different circumstances. When you're Yitzchak and you're giving a nevuah to a bracha based on nevuah to Yaakov, so then it's coming about through tefillah. You know, when you say, may you have a long life, then that is just like an expression of like well-wishing. But here he's talking about bracha, meaning like when the vision of the good that is put forth by the leader, which actually like governs what the people do, that's going to affect the outcome of the city. That's going to affect the fate of the city. So that's
why it says P and it doesn't say bracha in the second half, even if it could see blank one.
I don't care about that. I mean, I honestly don't care about that. Look,
how can you not care about that? That's exactly what you're saying.
No. Okay, let me explain what we're doing here. Hold on. I want to get the Mitzvah of its idea. Okay.
Oh, I wasn't talking about his idea.
Oh, okay, but you're talking about how to read it in the pasuk. Yeah, I'm not concerned with that right now. Yeah, right. Yeah, I just want to get the ideas right now. I just want to prioritize the ideas. Okay, so let's just put put that on the back burner. Okay, that's one approach that looked fruitful. Rבינו Yona, I think. Oh, he says two ideas. Okay, I kind of want to only focus on his first idea because it's kind of like Isaiah's. But Birkas Yishar. Let me get some English. Okay, so let me put this over here because I want to separate the Rבינו Yona's two ideas. Okay, so he says like this: Kasher yatzlichu hayesharim, when the Yesharim succeed, ba'osher uv'chavod, in wealth and status. I'm going to say status because I think that's what he means by kavod here. Tis ale v'tarim haMedina, the city will be elevated and raised up. Ki hayesharim moshchin libos b'nei adam b'chachmasam, because the Yesharim will draw the hearts of the people with their wisdom, v'yoatimosam, and advise them b'moetos v'das, with counsel and knowledge. Ki Yesharim heim hamaskilim, because the Yesharim are the intelligent ones. Shekol are the ones who possess good intellects. Kasher bi'arnu, as we've explained. And who can quote the line in Fiddler on the Roof that supports this? And when they have wealth and status, their words are listened to.
It's part of his song, right? Of Tevia's song, If I Were a Rich Man.
Yeah. So it's I just know this because my dad used to quote this a lot, is when you're rich, they think you really know. Right. So that's the thing. And that's why, by the way, there is, there's a statement in the Gemara that in order to be a Navi, you have to be an Ashir and a Gibor and a something, right? So Rambam interprets that metaphorically, that you don't actually have to be rich. You have to be like, your emotions have to be like in line with, even the killed or whatever, but there are those who interpret it literally that in order to be a Navi, you have to be rich. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to be rich in order to get Nevuah. It means that if you're not rich, no one's going to listen to you. People are just going to view you as like a bum. Or another example of this, Yehuda HaNasi was crazy rich. Okay. And that was part of his success. I mean, he changed the entire structure of Torah Sheba'al Peh and had to sell that idea to the rest of the Chachmei Yisrael. And it's a very controversial decision, but his wealth and status and he was also a scion of Malchus Beis David, so like it really helped. Okay, so that's what he's saying about the Yesharim. And then he says for the second half, Mifi Rishaim Tehares, Birachilus v'sichsuch, with gossip, v'sichsuch. I know sichsuch is like noise making. Okay, let's just say I get the sense he means like rabble rousing. Okay, or fomenting dissent. Okay, v'shluach midyanim and starting fights, v'higbiam hasheker and raising up falsehood, v'hishpilam ha'emes and lowering truth. Okay, and he doesn't explain any more than that. Okay, so this is so the second half of this is like what Isaiah was saying, but he's learning the first half is not the bracha that they say, but the bracha that happens to them will make their words heard.
It's interesting. I thought he was going to go a slightly different direction, but I think I was just still being influenced by the Matsuda stuff. But I feel like there's a combination idea where you could say that when the people who are successful are the Yesharim, they want to spread their success. So they're going to tell everybody around them how they got successful.
Right.
And when the people who are successful are the Rishayim, they're going to want to lord that over everybody and make everybody else feel worse.
That's a good idea.
It's not going to spread.
That's a really good idea. That's a good idea. And then because it doesn't spread, then it's going to just condemn this. So it's a combination of two things. One is because it doesn't spread, and three things. Sorry. Their success is not going to spread. Number two, they are Rishaim, so they're going to strip the resources of everyone around them. And number three, the things that they are putting out into the society, all these bad things are going to actively destroy the society. And with the Yesharim, it's the opposite, is that they want success for the entire system. They want success for everyone. Really would be better if it said tzaddikim, but we'll ignore that conveniently right now, but actually, it's okay. In other words, sorry, hold on. I forgot, according to Rבינו Yona, this does work out better because the Yesharim, I was getting mixed up with our definition of Yashar, but according to Rבינו Yona, Yashar really is greater than Tzaddik because Tzaddik is really going to be in terms of the actions, but Yashar will be in terms of the internal values as well. So it's like Tzaddik plus, and therefore they not only will they be doing the right thing, but they'll be able to communicate that in a way that it will affect other people. And they'll be listened to because people will look at them and say, oh, you're successful and you're nice, and like you can help us out also. Yeah. And I think this is the key point here, that will draw the hearts of the people with their wisdom. Because I think there is a drawing of the heart in a negative way through the Rishayim also. Like gossip definitely draws you in. Fights and taking sides draws you in. If you want to look at what happened to truth and falsehood in our society, just look anywhere around you at any side of the political spectrum and see what happened in America these last 2 years. It's there's definitely a raising up of sheker and a lowering of truth, and people take sides with that. It draws them in. Conspiracy theorists, right? I mean, it's yeah.
Is it possible that he's saying two different ideas? Because I feel like these are not the opposites.
I'll tell you why. Because then he says the yitachin lefarish, and then it's possible to explain. And he gives a second. Yeah. So this is all one idea. But I thought, you gave a good idea that that explains his words. I thought.
Well, I feel like it was based off of the first half, and I used the first half to the opposite.
Yeah, I think
the second half.
I think you're entitled to do that because he doesn't elaborate on the second half. He just says what they're saying, but he doesn't explain what the mechanics are.
Yeah, I was kind of yeah, fair enough.
Okay, let's do one more, and then we'll try to bring this home a little bit here, even though there's a lot more. Okay, so the Malbim, I wanted to do one of them that combines the two pasukim. So he says like this. So let's just quickly review the two pasukim here. So with the good of the tzaddikim, the city will rejoice, but with the destruction of the wicked, there is joy. Song, through the blessing of the upright, the city will be raised up, and through the mouth of the wicked, it will be torn down. So Malbim says, Hatzadikim osim tzedek b'foal. Tzadikim do, maybe I was subtly influenced by him when I was reading Rבינו Yona. Okay, tzadikim do righteousness in action. V'hayisharim heim bali habina, but the Yisharim possess understanding. V'shetivam nota latov, and their nature is inclined to the good. V'osim lifnim mishur sadin, and they go beyond the letter of the law. Kniskar le'elba pasuk gimel, like we said above in pasuk gimel. Mitzayer, it is portraying this image of Shayisharim ma'atzilim bracha al ha'ir. The Yisharim ma'atzil radiate bracha to the city. Uvavirchasam tarum kares b'mala v'romamus, and through their bracha, the city is raised up into a high level. Ki bracha tavo aide tosefes shefa kodesh sheyesh benefesh hamavarech, because bracha comes through the increase of the overflow of holiness that is in the soul of the one who gives bracha. Okay, I don't know if he's saying a hashgacha idea there. I think you could learn it from a teaching idea also. But tzadikim him hamatzilim mitovim hagashmi aide maseh tzidkasam uvetova, and tzadikim are the ones who radiate good, physical good, through their righteous actions. Uvetovim talot kirya, and through their goodness, then the city will rejoice. Ki yakablu mehem tov, because people will receive good from them. Uvirashayim yihye b'shinehem lehefech, and in Rashayim, both of them will be for the opposite. Im l'simchas ha'ir ba'avod Rashayim rina. Regarding the happiness of the city, then when the Rashayim are destroyed, then the city will be in joyous song. Kihim miriyim b'fal, because they do evil in actions. They harm you in action. The Indian of im b'inyan hanafshi, and if it's talking about the soul, b'fi Rashayim tahares im aida kilalasam im aida diba v'lashon hara. So they're gonna, whether through cursing people or through slander or through lashon hara, they're gonna affect people's minds, through their mouths. So he's learning it basically that it's giving you the recipe. Both pasukim are giving you the recipe for a successful city and an unsuccessful city. Is you need there to be good that is done through people who are systematically doing righteous actions, and you also need the intellectual influence of the people who are spreading knowledge. Which he says nafshi, so I'm assuming that that's what it means by the knowledge, because he says that they're bali bina. You could also learn it as a hashgacha idea, but if you learn it that way, I think it's a problem, because tzaddikim will also bring hashgacha. So I think he must be talking about Yisharim are guiding people in terms of like a correct understanding. And then with Rashayim, the destruction is brought about through both channels, through the destroying people in action, and then through corrupting their values through speech. Okay, so can we round up what we've gotten out of this pasuk, the different approaches here? This is not quite. I mean, we had way more approaches this time than we usually have. So, if you let's put it this way: if you think your approach is good to like is put together enough to like state as like a final idea, we'll sum it up there, and if not, then we'll like continue to develop it through the week, I guess. I think Rבינו Yona is the best candidate so far. Okay, Rבינו Yona, just to repeat Rבינו Yona's idea, is that that it's talking about the influence that Yesharim and Rashayim have based on their appeal, right? So the appeal, okay, maybe we could develop it even more. Yesharim are speaking words of seichel. Problem is that seichel does not appeal to people. So in order to appeal to people, then the Yesharim will have to be successful. Thankfully, that's going to happen because they're intelligent. Once they're successful, then their success will spread to other people because that's what they want to do, and that will cause the whole city to lift up. Isn't there a statement like a rising, what is it, the rising tide?
Raises all ships or something.
Raises all ships, right? Exactly. Like so that's how the Yesharim focus. That's what happens with the Yesharim, is that they have this intelligence to become successful, and it'll spread to other people because they want to emulate them, and everyone will be helped. The Rashayim will do the exact opposite. They will seize all the resources for themselves. They'll do it by using their speech as a weapon, And what's going to happen is like they're going to undermine the resources of the city, because they're Rishayim, but they will also be spreading values that are going to corrode the city, and they're going to. And I said one more thing also. Oh, and no, I forgot the other thing. Yeah, I don't know the other thing.
Can you quickly repeat the Malvin's idea before we end?
Yeah, let me just go first to the one I understand better. The Mitsudas, his idea was that it's essentially about the person who possesses the rhetorical key to articulating the vision of the good that the city has will determine its success. So if you are a Kim Jong-un who is basically projecting a vision of the good of glorifying the Kim family, and Americans are just a bunch of greedy, corrupt, deficient people, and the good is that you completely obey like the Kim regime. So then that's going to determine the entire fate of the city. That's bracha though. Like he's saying the key to bracha is through obeying this value system, and then you'll reap all the benefits, or if you want to go earlier, Paro, right? But Paro advocating a system of deification of Paro and like working for the glory of Egypt, and like a very materialistic type good. But if the bracha is in the mouth of the Yesharim, so then you're in good hands, and that's going to guide the city properly. So the question is, who has the bracha? And again, I in our society, like who has the bracha in our society? It's a good question. I mean, I feel like Wall Street has some of it, and Hollywood has some of it.
I'd say popularity, right? Meaning our power structure is in those that have the popular vote through whatever system.
Oh no, I don't even think. No, I see popular. Well, okay, yeah, that's a manifestation of it.
Wait, what do you mean by bracha in this context?
I mean, like the Mitzvah stuff is saying, is who is articulating the vision of the good that is moving all the people.
Oh, you're saying like who's like the best orator?
Like no, like for example,
social
like
media
if you want to
influencers.
compare, like
CNN.
No, meaning like it's Theodore Roosevelt's idea of the bully pulpit, and the mouth of the president can shape the will of the people because he speaks and he's the representative for everybody. I think it's the president that formulates the vision of the people and directs it, and it's rooted in the popularity.
AOC.
To some extent, but here's the thing though, is like who exerts more of an influence on the vision of the good, Biden or Kim Kardashian? Like honestly, like
Biden.
Kim Kardashian for sure.
I agree with
No, listen, popularity is an element, and like yes, people will always sway people. I would say that Kim Kardashian is similar to like the Rishayim, meaning like individuals that can wield their mouth and direct people. But in the end, the power, the bracha, sits within the one person. So that was Trump, it was Biden, it was Obama, and when they speak, that's the bracha of the nation. That's the formulation. And if they're not tzaddikim, if they're not yashar in their approach, if they're distorting it, then downfall.
But
Who has more followers on Instagram?
It still comes
Yeah,
down
who-
to people.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna just I think there's an element of truth in what you're saying. I think there's an element of truth in what I'm saying. I want to make an argument from the pasuk though. I don't think the pasuk is talking about that, because then the pasuk would be talking about the king. And there's another pasuk that fits in very well with what you're saying, which is that hold on a second. I don't remember the exact pasuk, but I think it's going to fit in really well with what you're saying. I think the fact that it says Yesharim and Rishaim, it's talking about classes of people who like embody values. But
So you
this
mean like
pasuk,
more the aristocracy?
well, aristocracy could be one manifestation of it, but like but celebrity status I think is another one. Wealth is another one. This is okay, maybe just the first half of this. Kesem al sifsei melech. There is a charm on the lips of a king. The second half says b'mishpat lo yimal piv. In his law, then the mouth will not rebel. But like that's talking about the thing you say that the king, whatever repository is of like popular sentiment, that person is going to have tremendous power. I think this though is talking about like groups of people who are viewed as like by listening to these people, you're going to get the bracha, you know?
So maybe the billionaires.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, I think like wealthy people and then famous people, I think are like two of the equivalents in our society, you know? It's not
That's why
academics. not
That's why I'm
sages.
in Florida right now.
You don't have to elaborate on that. Okay. And then last thing is the Malbim. I know we haven't fully fleshed out all these ideas, but the Malbim's idea was the recipe for a good city is you need a class of people that are doing righteous actions and a class of people that are radiating understanding. And so that's the tzaddikim do the good actions, and the Yesharim are giving out understanding, and the Rishaim are undermining them on both fronts. The difficult thing about the Malbim is like, so what? Like who is this directed at? You know, this less clear. But I like the Rubina Yona and the Mitzudas. I mean, I think those are two really good and very different ideas. Are there any other ideas that were said tonight that we can summarize at the end that
I thought of a way to frame the one I was talking about
Sure,
a
go
little
ahead.
Differently is there's like a business strategy technique, which is like if you have a company, and there's a exercise you can do, which is you can think like if this time next year my company is bankrupt, what are the most likely reasons why?
Oh yeah. What do they call that? There's a catchy name for that.
It might be called the Tombstone Exercise.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But there might be other ones.
Yeah.
But like and alternative exercise is like if this time next year I'm $1 million company, what are the most likely reasons why?
Right. And that's you're saying, just to clarify, that's corresponding to your idea that the pasuk is saying if you see a city that is raised up, then it was because of the Birkas Yesharim, and the opposite for the second half.
Exactly. And the reason why that exercise is helpful and the reason why this pasuk is useful is because then it informs the people on which path to actively pursue to get the outcome that they are interested in.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And again, the thing I liked most about that idea of yours is that I think in the past we've seen psukim that talk about like extremes of good and bad, and we've said Mishlei is talking to the middle guy who's working on developing to become that. I feel like this is a little bit more accessible because it's talking about like who your allegiances lie with. Like I feel like other psukim that we've done are saying like if you want to be a tzaddik, then emulate this action. I don't know. I feel like this has a different vibe, and they're both good, but like I don't know, something about this is different the way you're saying it.
Yeah, and the way you just phrased it also, I feel like ties in the pasuk before as well, because like the starting point, like before you're emulating, you're yeah, exactly. Like you're excited for this one, or you're upset. You're cheering for a hero, and then you decide to emulate them.
Right. Exactly.
You know.
Yeah.
So
it does flow nicely from the last one, right?
Yeah.
Specifically from the last pasuk, with the reading of the prescriptive reading, like you should rejoice when the tzaddikim experience good, and you should sing joyously when the Rishaim die. Yeah. Okay, that was a tough, multifaceted set of psukim there. Let us stop for tonight. Oh, and as usual, I didn't see the chat, but okay, fine. All right, not to me anyway. Okay, so all right, so let's call it quits for tonight, and Bli Neder will pick up next week. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank
All
you.
right, have a good night.
Have a good night.
Thank